Hey crew, it's Pitt, and I'm back. But before we jump into the react, y'all make sure to check out the alternatives because not everything I do is going to be able to put up on YouTube. They don't like me over here. I'm going to try and keep it very nice, but we'll see how it rolls out. If you'd like to support the channel, check out the link below. I got a store set up over at Etsy. I'm trying to get some more stuff going. I'm very slow. Y'all check it out. Now, let's dig in. Alright crew, it's typing time. We're going to be digging in and checking out the opponent to Dr. Oz, who seems to be the best pick as far as I can tell. It's not my race though, so I'm not digging that deep. I do want to see where her mind's at, so we're going to check her out. This is Kathy Barnett. If you're not familiar with my MBTI system, it's a little bit different than anything you've ever seen before. I have changed some things. My determination will not look like anybody else's. I'm okay with that. What we look for in a person is where the focus of their thoughts are. That is either on things or ideas, one of the two. You're either very much grounded in actual physical things or you're in the ideas. Of those things, you do one of two things with it. You either gather new ones or you sort through the old ones. You organize the old ones. That is, things would be an S and ideas would be an N. Gather is going to be a P, and organize is going to be a J. You either do that primarily for yourself or primarily for your tribe. That is either I or E. If you're for yourself, it's an I. You either do that through controlling the process or by flexing around the processes or the ideas, whichever the case may be. And that is a T or an F. Your control, you're a T. And direct reform is how you deliver the information back. Do you talk a lot and run down rabbit holes and over-explain stories, or do you say as few words as possible? And that determines your third slot, whether or not that's an introverted or an extroverted slot. So, with all that being said, we're going to check out Kathy Barnett and see what she is.
I had initially was...
Also, I pick long-form videos as often as possible, and then I jump to a random point in there because it doesn't matter what the question is. Whatever the focus of the conversation is how we determine them. It's whatever she brings the conversation to. It doesn't matter what they're talking about. It doesn't matter if she's trying to lie about it. It doesn't matter if she's trying to obfuscate a determination to a large point, because what I'm looking at are overarching elements.
What if they turn out to be stupid? What if I make my children dumb? What
There's an idea for you.
if
That is a possibility, right? What if I make my children dumb? So we're looking already at ideas, we're looking at gather, and possibly tribe.
don't teach something that they should know, and it'll be all my fault? I won't be able to blame the public school system. It will be all my fault if they turn out to be dumb or something. So irrational, but it was the constant thought on my mind at the time. And again, and then the other thing that constantly plagued me, I did not know as a Christian woman just how much of the feminist lie I had bought into. I am woman, hear me roar. Look at me, veteran.
So she had a hard time narrowing down the idea.
Adjunct professor, corporate America, Wall Street. Look at all the things I'm doing, right? And I did not know just how much of that was my identity. So when I started homeschooling, when people would get around to that question, what do you do? Be like, oh, I felt embarrassed. I felt like I was less than. And then, as I mentioned to you before, I remember so clearly a passage that came to my mind, and that is when Jesus was on the cross, he rejected the shame because of the joy that was set in front of him. And I remember thinking that one day I was at Fox and someone was asking me, what do you do? And it was that like, oh, I knew that question.
It's a fairly straightforward question for about half of the population, right? They're like, well, I do this. Some of them go off and they're like, well, I'm a father or I'm a mother, and they do that intentionally, but most people just list their job. Some people have a hard time narrowing that down.
question was coming. What do you say? And I remember feeling the shame creep up in my throat. And I just said to myself, I reject that shame.
That is like, what would that be? Shame. To that degree. That would be a TE child, maybe? Probably TE child, because you're going to be very defensive over what other people think. Like, that would be my leaning on that. I'm not typing based on that, but that's just me churning in my head.
I'm going to push beyond that because I see the joy that is set in front of me. What a wonderful opportunity as homeschooling moms we have to truly influence the world. When I was walking around so many years ago with my daughter in my belly, thinking about all the great things I was going to do for the Lord in the world, how I was going to make an impact. There is no greater impact we can make than on the little lives that are in front of us. The world is going to need.
Now that is an NI thing there. Now, everybody uses all of the things at all of the time, like in varying degrees at all of the times. What your focus is on is what you do naturally without even thinking about it. She seems to be almost FI dominant, right? Because she is seeing a lot of possibilities, but she's having to force herself to see those possibilities. She's taking responsibility for those possibilities. That leans me more towards having the gather be second, or having the gather of the information be secondary to how she feels about it. So it would be an FINE situation. That's kind of what I'm looking at. Which also means that we're going to be looking to see if she's control her movement, right? If I'm right about the F, then she should be rather flexible about things. And the fact that she can take her thoughts, what she was thinking about the situation, and apply this modifier, scripture, and change it immediately in her own mind, gives me a feeling of movement. A T would argue with themselves a lot more.
What my children will have. And my children will have those things in large part because we're pouring those things into our children, the character, right? We're dealing with a society who are now telling our young children, you cannot trust your own two eyes. Yeah. You're looking at me, I look like a woman, I sound like a woman, but I may not be a woman. You need to wait until I tell you who I am. I look like.
That's another TE child pushback.
Like a duck, quack like a duck, walk like a duck, but I may be a sheep. You don't know. Right. And somehow you're wrong if you trust your own two eyes. Think about that for a moment. Right. We have a society, a whole culture that is teaching formidable little minds you cannot trust yourself.
Here, let me parent this NE to you. Here is a brand new idea that I am responsible for letting you know about. That was pretty good.
That is teaching formidable little minds you cannot trust yourself. Those little minds, those little souls are going to become our future doctors, our future lawyers, our future bankers, our future accountants, right? Who will test the wind to see which way is blowing before they know what is right and wrong. And as a mom today, I fully understand that the joy that is set before me, or the two little souls that God has allowed me the opportunity to kind of walk alongside and to make sure they have a firm understanding that truth really does exist. And it's not based upon how you feel in this moment. That's my role. So yes, I'm on.
Okay, so I'm picking up a lot of self here. Like, it took her understanding for herself to want to give it to the tribe. Whereas a tribe-focused person would automatically apply it to the tribe and then apply it to themselves. So I am picking up a self vibe. That does not mean selfish. That means that you use your primary function for yourself first. For her, the primary function appears to be the gathering of ideas. She seems to be very flexible around the ideas, and she's quite informative. So this looks like we're going to go ahead and do a preliminary type, and then we'll look for confirmations on the back side of it. But ideas is going to be N, gather is going to be a P, self will be an I, and movement will be an F. So she's an I, N, F, P. She is informative, so that means her third slot is going to be the extroverted function, and that is going to be the alternate. She's going to be an INFP alternate. So our confirmations are going to be that she's going to push back against the tribe's thoughts or for the tribe's thoughts in a very childlike manner, right? She's going to get defensive over that. She's going to gather the possibilities and feel responsible about the possibilities. She's not gathering them just for gathering them's sake. She's gathering them to use them. She is going to FI. She's going to be very focused on her morals, right? That is FI, is morals, because that is how you determine what is right. FE is ethics, because that is how everyone determines what is right. So she's going to filter it through her own feelings, and we've already seen examples of that, but we'll look for some more. And then the SI inferior, SE demon combination there is going to make her, she's not going to know what she thinks because of the TI trickster. But the SE, she's not going to be very good at doing the things. The SI inferior, she's going to remember the general categories, but none of the specifics in her examples. Like when she was giving the examples of the professions for the kids, she was talking about these are the professions, right? But there was no specificity of who was going to fill whatever. That would be the SI in an inferior slot. Means that you're going to have a harder time keeping track of things, organizing things, and doing things on time. Let's look for confirmations.
Fox. I get to talk to millions of people multiple times a week. I have a book deal by a large...
Look at all these people thinking that I know what I'm talking about. That is a TE child in a positive manner, where not as a pushback against, but as a receiving the thanks of. Like that is a childlike motivator. She's very proud of that, and not undeservedly.
By one of the largest publishing companies, and yet there is nothing more profound, more impactful in this culture that I can do than to raise up these two little ones who will understand there is such a thing as right and wrong.
Yeah. Yep. Amen. I want to continue talking about this. We're going to take a quick break to listen to some information on a sponsor, and then we're going to come back and I want to keep going on this. And I'm going to take my regular water break.
Oh, this is good. Huh?
And chapstick break.
We're getting behind the scenes view. This is perfect.
All right. You good?
I'm good.
All right. Hold on one second.
Very interesting.
Okay, we are
I know there was not a lot of information conveyed there, but it was still interesting to watch.
back with Kathy Barnett. We're talking about just the impact that we get to make in the lives of our children through having them at home with us, and how in the midst of all of the other things that you're doing, that we do, the most importantly on a day-to-day basis. Chauffeured that time. I think they had been on with you on, but on to
Moment by moment, I heard someone say, we just celebrated the homegoing of my sweet aunt. She's a giant in the faith. And I heard one of the pastors say, my aunt did not go out witnessing. She was a witness. Her life was a witness. And I vehemently agree with that. And that is how I earnestly try to live my life, the way I talk, the way I walk, what I read, how I dress, how I eat, just everything about me. My children are always with me. They're at Fox almost every time I go. So they're in New York. If I have a speaking event, my babies are usually in the background somewhere. They're always with me because that's a part of homeschooling.
Yep.
And they watch everything. My daughter watches her mommy interacts with other men, right? The way in which I do that, I'm witnessing. My son sees me, in those quiet moments, right? Where what I'm watching on television, right? In my home.
Okay, so she's talking about specific examples, which is an SI thing, but she's not getting into details about the specific examples, which is an SI inferior thing. She does still seem to be bringing a lot of different ideas without getting too very specific about them. She still seems to be quite flexible about the ideas. Like, she has her TE, what she thinks is right? She has already determined through her morals what everyone thinks in the child slot is either right or wrong. And she's going to push back against that or for that accordingly. She believes that the left is wrong, so she pushes back against that with everything. She believes that Fox News and that situation is better. I'm not going to say she thinks they're right because I don't know that, but she thinks that's better. And so she very much appreciates having that. These people, everyone, is talking about me. And that's not to be vain or self-centered in that way. That is using things for yourself first and then giving it to the tribe. And it is okay to take satisfaction in things. Like, a lot of people tend to take self to mean selfish, and it is not that.
Everything about our lives. It's not just setting aside, 20 minutes a day, 30 minutes a day to speak truth into our children's lives.
Yeah.
It's every single moment of my life. I remember when my babies were very, very little, and I used to love watching Bachelor. I know. And when my babies will walk into the room, I will pause it because, the stuff that it wasn't even nearly as bad as Bachelor is today. This was like 6 years ago. 8 years ago. So it wasn't nearly as bad as it is today, but it was still bad enough for me to pause it when they walk into the room. And my son,
feeling responsible for the possibility there. My kid might see this and it might impact his life, so I'm going to stop it.
Who was then about...
And she's being flexible because a T would be like, get out of here. She's going to stop it.
About 4 years old said, Mommy, if I shouldn't watch it, you shouldn't watch it. And that was so
conviction.
So true.
That's not true, though.
I stopped.
There are plenty of things that are appropriate for adults that are not appropriate for children. And that's not saying the Bachelor is appropriate for anyone. But there are plenty of examples of things that are okay for adults that are not okay for kids. Sexual discussions at all, for being one.
Stopped watching Bachelor, The Bachelor, The Bachelorette 8 years ago when my 4-year-old witnessed to me that if I shouldn't watch it, Mommy, you shouldn't watch it, right?
And that's being flexible around the kid, right? So
it's recognizing that those little eyes are
being flexible around the possibility that the kid would be corrupted by it.
Forever open. They're little sponges. We know that, right? And so that's one of the things that I do is that I am a witness. Also, just making the Bible practical. I was telling my son the other day that, before the foundation of the world, he's 12 now, before the foundation of the world, God saw you. He called you. He predestined you. He created a purpose for your life.
Listen to these possibilities right here.
Yep.
And then in 2006, he put that purpose in a body. And we named him Carl. And I said, so I'm sure when God was coming up with your purpose, spending 4 hours on Xbox wasn't a part of that purpose. so it's helping. So it's using scripture in a very practical way of helping them to see that, you're going to have to give account of that purpose, of that time that we only have so much time in the world to make an impact. Spending 4 hours a day, quote unquote, probably isn't the best, probably wasn't what God had in mind for the foundation of the world when he was designing your purpose. And so therefore letting my children see that mommy don't spend 4 hours on Facebook any longer, scrolling. Mommy doesn't spend 4 hours watching TV, just watching, flipping through channels. Because that's probably not what God had in mind when he designed me as well. So
That has been a little too flexible around the idea. I'm good with the determination. I hope that I helped y'all see a little bit of something. This was a very interesting interview. I feel a lot better about her being there instead of Dr. Oz after seeing this video. That she is taking the personal responsibility while still maintaining flexibility around ideas. She does what she does for herself primarily that makes her an I. She gathers the ideas that makes her an NP, and she's flexible that makes her an F. She seems to be informative that gives her a third slot extroverted, and it seems to fit quite well. The determination seemed to be well. She didn't get into a whole lot of examples that I'm assuming it's because she doesn't remember them very well. Those of us that don't remember examples very well tend to not give them very much. She did a lot of tribe pushback in this. That's why I was almost willing to start typing off of the child pushback, because the way that she was for and against very much what her part of the tribe thinks is very much a TE thing. And the pushback specifically, the way that she was pushing back against the ideas of the tribe gave me a very clear indication of child. Because when it's the child slot, that's the part that you get defensive about. That's the part that you're like, I really need to defend why I think everyone thinks this, or like, and she's not very good at remembering the details, so that's going to be very hard for her. This was a good type. I liked it. It was a good video to watch. I'm glad I did it. I hope that I brought a little bit more knowledge to you so that you can help you. That's what this is about. This is not to formally type whoever. It is so we can get examples of people in conversation. I prefer them in a conversation like this than I do in a prepared speech. But even in a prepared speech, what they choose to speak about is going to tell you a lot about their type. To the crew, thanks for hanging out. I appreciate every single minute that you are here with me, and I am praying for you every single day. Till next time, this has been pittstake. Peace.